You are listening to a Pod Bros exclusive.
Hey now, everybody, we're back. Brand new episode of Take Aim Outdoor Podcast, and super excited, as always, to bring a fresh new show and a new guest, and super excited to talk to this guy, Dan Staton. Dan, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Brandon. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
No problem, man. I'm super excited to talk to you, and just kind of, hopefully you'll drop some knowledge for us today.
Maybe.
But I know I'm going to let you talk and introduce yourself a little, Dan, but the first time I think I kind of figured out who you were or what you did was maybe it's already been about 4 years, but all of a sudden I just noticed this guy on the Hoyt's webpage, and that was it. I just started, after that point, just basically followed you and tried to keep up with what you're doing. But why don't you explain that, Dan, and give us a little background on yourself?
Right on. Well, first and foremost, I'm just, a husband and a father, like many of you out there. And as far as the hunting industry stuff goes, I've been in the hunting industry since about 2007. I got a job with Sportsman's Warehouse News, which is a publication DVD that puts out a monthly publication. Mike Deming, and they still do, an issue a month. So if you ever walk into any Sportsman's Warehouse, they have a publication at the front door. Started writing for them, making DVDs, started writing for Bowhunter Magazine, jumped into some video stuff for Bowhunter Magazine TV, and then we started writing articles for Hoyt and other hunting magazines, and then I do videos for Hoyt. And since 2007, just kind of worked my way up through the industry, getting to know lots of different partners. So in 2010, we started Train to Hunt with Kent and Claremont. Did that for a few years, and then Kent and I parted ways. And in the interim, I've just been outdoor riding a ton for elk hunter, extreme elk, bow hunter, bow hunting, bow and arrow, lots of different publications. Too many to name, and I still do stuff for Hoyt. And I finally just created a website where I could put all my articles in one spot, and that's elkshape.com. as well as my YouTube channel, Elk Shape, where I just kind of make content for people that want to get in shape year-round for elk hunting, which is what I'm truly passionate about. And, just currently own CrossFit Spokane Valley and run and manage that. And like I said before, just a dad and a husband. So I'm all or none type of personality. So I don't have much room on my plate for anything else but family and fitness and bow hunting. So that's what I'm into. That's what I do.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that, though, Dan. Nothing at all.
Yeah.
Let me touch base a little bit on the Train to Hunt. Were you in the CrossFit gym? Was that established first, or how did that come about in correlation with the Train to Hunt?
Yeah, backstory on I hired Kenton as a personal trainer for me in like 2006, and him and I became really good friends. And in 2008, we decided to open CrossFit Spokane Valley together. And then in 2010, we decided to create Train to Hunt. And then I think in 2012-ish, I told him and he told me we kind of wanted to part ways. So I took over the gym and he took over Train to Hunt. That way we both could just focus on one thing. And that really helped out a lot. I think both are doing really well, actually better than they were. And we're still good friends, and that's how that went down.
That's super cool. So how much of what you took from CrossFit led to the Train to Hunt, would you say?
A ton.
I mean, a ton. Okay.
A ton. When Ken and I both found CrossFit, we're like, man, this is going to make us better hunters. We're going to get really well-rounded. And I think Kenton's done a good job since I've left of kind of walking away from some of the stuff of CrossFit that doesn't really, a lot of guys that are new to getting up into this type of intensity of training don't need to spend a ton of times mastering Olympic weightlifting like you do at a CrossFit gym. They're just going to get hurt. They don't have a coach nearby. So a lot of the stuff, it gets, swapped out for sandbags and heavy backpacks, but there's definitely a flavor of CrossFit in Train to Hunt. Even, Kenton still does CrossFit on the side too. And they work out really well. I mean, they both are going to prepare you for the unknown and the unknowable. And really at the end of the day, if you're doing something, you're moving in the right direction. If you're moving the needle, you're doing good. If you're not doing anything, that's where you get in trouble. And that's where you're going to get, August is going to roll around and you're going to be unprepared. And your chance of success, archery, elk hunting, or any type of hunting really, I think goes down. In fact, I think it plummets.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, there's something that's absolute about the body and mind. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes.
There's so much to be said there. And I don't even know how to quantify it exactly, but I know that I absolutely get disgusted with myself when I need a week off and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just feel like I haven't done anything. And I can just start to feel like mentally just not as happy. It's pretty crazy. And that is definitely related to what we do in the woods or the mountains.
Totally agree. And, there's an argument out there that I've heard a lot that you don't have to be in really, it doesn't matter what kind of shape you're in as long as you're mentally tough. And I bet there is a teeny tiny percentage of people that are just born mentally tough. I consider myself extremely mentally tough. And I know that I wasn't born that way. I would say one of my God-given gifts is discipline, but without the blood, sweat, and tears and the fatigue and the ridiculous training and regimen that I stick to, that breeds mental toughness. Every day I have to do things I don't want to do, but I do them to make myself better. And the only way I've been able to get mentally tougher in the mountains has been through daunting physical training and taking my nutrition serious and treating myself like an athlete and training for hunting. And, you build that mental toughness, you build that, you bankroll it, you deposit mental toughness into a bank day in and day out. And if you haven't been making deposits, I don't know how you can all of a sudden pull that out when you're in the back country and it's day number 5 and you don't want to get out of your sleeping bag because you're worn out, full of fatigue. And you know what I mean? Like, I don't comprehend that concept. So my argument is that mental toughness is bred through daily grinding, strong discipline, and training and doing things you don't want to do.
Yeah, I totally agree. I sort of feel like it is, for one, it's just an invalid argument because when you're already at just any kind of shape is better than nothing. Like you said, moving the needle. So once you've moved it and you keep moving it, guess what? That mental toughness becomes so natural that compared to the guy that hasn't done it, you're just so much farther ahead. It's not even, like I said, it's not even comparable because you're just already there. You're already at that level.
Yes.
So, but I know that we're getting a little bit away from the hunting a little bit on this question, but I know that, and just kudos to you, Dan, I know you've actually been in the CrossFit Games, so do you mind just for a second just telling me a little bit about that?
Yes. I've been doing CrossFit, like I said, since about 2008, and I've made it to the CrossFit Games one time. Our team qualified actually twice, and there's a long story behind that, but we went to the Games as a team in 2013 and competed against the top teams in the world. It's on ESPN. It's in Carson, just outside of LA at the Hub Stub Center. And it's a really big deal, and it's extremely, extremely difficult to qualify. So it's delayed gratification. You're training for years upon years to finally get there. And it's extremely rewarding. It's a competition unlike other. You're competing against the fittest people on earth. and you're training for something that you don't know what you're going to do. So you don't know what the workouts are going to be until you get there. So you have to basically make sure you spend a great deal of time working on your weaknesses, minimizing those, and make sure that you have a wide variety of stimulus. You got to swim, you got to bike, you got to run, you got to lift heavy, you got to do short, long, medium conditioning pieces, and work on your gymnastics and skills. And it really almost becomes a job. And in fact, I'm like 34 right now. This is probably going to be my last year of doing that kind of stuff with the family starting to grow. And it just takes a lot of time, but I definitely will help other people get there. And that's just as rewarding. And yeah, it's an honor to have competed in the games. And I think we might be able to get back there this year as well.
That is super cool. One question, Dan, just because I've never done CrossFit. I've taken some movements from CrossFit and different exercises like that. I do that quite a bit, just, a different genre of exercises, put them together or whatever. But I've always felt, and just curious your opinion on this, is there maybe a recipe for disaster when you mix lifting and exercise with a competitive edge? Because I know that reminds me of me when I was 20 and like trying to out bench my friend or out pull up my friend, or is that just based, do you believe the safety factor is having those coaches so everybody knows exactly what they're doing?
Man, that's a tough question. I mean, you are coming right at me, so I'll try to answer that as best I can. Everything we do is dangerous. Like, you go snow skiing, you hit a tree going fast, you're going to be messed up. You're going to maybe die. You riding a bike in the city, without a helmet is dangerous. You could get hit by a car. Lifting weights could be dangerous if you do it wrong or use bad technique or, use too much load. You can hurt yourself hunting. So there's a risk versus benefit that you have to weigh. And I think CrossFit does one of the best jobs if you're at a good CrossFit box, which, by the way, there's 13,000 CrossFits and growing. When I started, I was like one of probably number 1,000 or something. So it's grown a ton. Not all CrossFits are created equal, so you have to shop around and find the one with the best coaching for you. But CrossFit's built upon a first establishing technique, and it's like a charter of mechanics. And technique is first, and then consistency in your technique, which takes weeks, if not months, to build that consistency or continuity in your technique. And then, and only then, can you ratchet up the intensity and look out the corner of your eye and compete with the guy next to you. But if you come in raw with shitty mechanics and large loads, that's a recipe for disaster, no question. And that is ego. And so most CrossFits have this written on their wall somewhere: check your ego at the door, because that will get you in trouble. It's just like, I shoot an 80-pound bow. If you haven't pulled back 80 pounds and you've been shooting 70 pounds or 65 pounds and you're like, oh, I can do that. Well, sure, you can pull back a few times, but I guarantee you couldn't use my bow for a 40 target 3D tournament. By target number 20, you're going to have to use your legs to get that bow back because you're using your, you know what I mean? So ego gets in the way. It gets in the way of hunting. That's why hunters are our own worst enemies. Seems like, you know what I mean? The antis are always coming after us, and we come after each other even more. We cut each other's throats because of ego and size of antlers and this, that, the other. So just like in hunting, if you check your ego at the door and you're coachable, you can learn the movements. And with CrossFit, the magic is in the movements, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely, man. And great answers. And by all means, it was meant to get that out just so I have a different outlook and everybody does, or people that are unfamiliar with CrossFit, is you're really right on that. A lot of that stuff is ego, absolutely. And when I just said that about myself, Dan, at 20, that was ego as well. So that's why I wanted to ask those questions so I know if I do go one day just as a guest or check out somebody's box, how to act and how to do that stuff. And no, man, you answered it perfectly. So kudos.
Right on.
So I know right before the show we talked a little bit about your bear hunting, and you're super into that. So tell me about that and kind of your growth as a bear hunter and learning that skill.
Sweet, yes. Absolutely love bear hunting. It's probably my second favorite type of hunting next to elk hunting is bear, just because it takes place in the spring. I started bow hunting in 2000, so like the first 7 years I didn't bear hunt. I turkey hunted, and I killed all my turkeys with a bow, and I would spend insane amount of hours turkey hunting, which probably helped my elk hunting out a little bit, but it was just an excuse to get outside. You know, we as bow hunters, you know, there's not a lot of us can't really hunt that much in the winter per se, and so we're jonesing to get out, cabin fever. But bear hunting, I went on my first bear hunt in 2008 with Sportsman's News Television, and I went on an outfitted hunt with some guys in Idaho in the Clearwater. I think they're called B-Bar C, and we were hunting over bait, and I just learned for a whole week basically their system of baiting bears, which you can in Idaho. And then I come to find out that the next year my dad and I went in and bought a cabin in Idaho together. And we realized that our cabin was in a unit where you could bear hunt over the counter every year. And so we just kind of evolved since 2008 and ended up pretty much figuring out how to spot and stalk, kill bears with bows. And that took a few years. And we learned how to bait bears and how the bear rut happens in the spring. We learned about that. And in my unit, I can kill 2 bears, and I think I've done that for about 4 or 5 years straight, 2 bears a year in the spring. And I'll be honest with a lot of hunters out there, like, you should be jealous because it's over the counter. And by June, I have 2 bears killed, 2 big game animals killed. My broadheads are dialed. My bow's super tuned. I got blood on my hands. I got meat in the freezer. I've gotten to use my hunting senses, and it's June 1st. You know what I mean? It just builds momentum into the fall, whereas a lot of guys are just, you know, stuck either hunting turkeys or nothing at all. And so I really have grown to love bears and learn. I'm intrigued by bears. They're fascinating. I mean, there's so much to know about bears that it hasn't gotten old yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it sounds interesting. Do you mostly just do spring, Dan? Just so, like you said, you basically just, you know, like you're in the batter's box and you're warming up for fall?
Yeah. Like last year, I killed 2 spring bears in Idaho, and then I was out of bear tags in Idaho, you know, and then I killed a fall bear in Washington. But so last year I killed 3 bears, but before that, I pretty much don't focus on bears once the spring's over. It's not, you know, the bear that I killed last year in Washington was just more of an opportunity. I wasn't, you know, dead set on going out bear hunting, but yeah, it's a great warm up. You're out, you know, you're honing your hunting skills when you're hunting bear because they have one of the best noses on the planet. So wind is huge, scent elimination, keeping the wind in your face, glassing. Just, you know, bears are one of the hardest animals to glass. You can sit there and stare at a clear cut through a spotting scope or binos all day, and at any moment a bear can just appear. They just kind of materialize. So you really have to learn how to grid and be patient and learn where the bears are going to be. That's a great skill to take into the fall. And then obviously executing a good shot on a bear. Bears are very, very, very tough animals. You have to make a good shot to kill them. Not that you don't have to make a good shot on other animals, but I would say bears in particular, if you don't double lung, you're in big trouble. You're in big trouble.
No, for sure, you're right. And by no means, I didn't mean to like devalue bears as a warm-up game species, because God, by all means, it's not. It's such an awesome critter to hunt, and I think it's just exciting, you know, that you get to do that before, you know, the fall. It's just kind of neat. It gets you, like you said, tuned, and, you know, like by September comes, man, you're already in full-on predator mode.
Yeah, I know, and it is a warm-up, though. I mean, like, I'm definitely, like, I haven't bear hunted yet this year, but when I get out, I'll be a little rusty. but we'll chip that rust off and get going back into the, predator mode. And, a lot of states out west aren't over the counter. Washington State, my home state, is not, although it should be. It's got high bear densities. Montana's got some over-the-counter opportunity. I believe Oregon has a draw system, but I think there might be some over-the-counter. But Idaho's definitely got a ton of over-the-counter. I know Colorado doesn't, and it should. I think Wyoming has some over-the-counter. Not sure about the other states. I know California, I've hunted there. They have more bear than they need, and they have idiots running their legislation. So it's I don't know if they have a spring season. They definitely need to. I know they eliminated dogs a couple years ago. But like, for instance, I hunted, not that this is part of our combo, but I hunted blacktail in 2012 in California, and before opening day, I think I counted 13 bears in one drainage. It was ridiculous. There's just too many bears, and that was in the Trinities. Great hunt, by the way, if anyone's ever wanting to go to California. That's a good hunt. There was a lot of hunting pressure, but I ended up getting it done, and you can get bear tags for that hunt, so over the counter, so in the fall, or gosh, I think that was August. So but California needs to do something about their bear density, and so does Washington. They need to really, in my opinion, open it up in the spring for over-the-counter action. Bears are really hard on ungulates. People don't get this, but the bears are the only animals that are rutting in the spring. Late May, early June, which is the exact same time frame that calves and fawns are getting dropped. And the mothers will eat their placenta and lick those babies dry, and they'll dump them off in some tall grass, and they don't stand or hang out near their babies because they don't want to draw attention. But when you have a boar, a male bear, full rut with the nose, an old factory at their level, they're just cruising ridge lines with wind in their face. They're going to stumble upon a handful of calves or fawns, and that's like fresh steak. That's veal. That's just a no-brainer. Bears are opportunists. I mean, they're predominantly omnivores in my country, but I have seen the carnage firsthand. I've seen the little baby bones with meat just chewed off, literally where I had been the day before. So, and I don't blame the bears because, as far as, I just don't think that's just nature, but when you have
totally.
that many,
they're just trying to survive too,
They're doing their thing, but we need to do our thing and keep them in check. I mean, bears reproduce really well. They do. They have a great survival rate. Almost always have twins, sometimes triplets. Bears live to be old. I killed a bear that was in its 20s a couple years ago, and the biggest bear I've killed was 14 years old, and you can get that age by pulling the milk tooth and sending it in. Bears live a long time. Have you ever heard of a 20-year-old bull elk? No.
No, I haven't.
You haven't. And deer, like, we all get excited about a 4.5-year-old whitetail buck, or older. So bears just live a long time, and I invite everybody to come out here and hunt out west in the spring. Get yourself a week off and come try some spot and stalk or even baiting, and come get some, do-it-yourself action, or hire an outfitter and learn how I did. But bears are a great resource. I have so much respect for them, but I encourage everyone to hunt them to keep their numbers in check. The same with wolves in Idaho. Like, wolf tags $30 for non-residents. Come do some wolf hunting. We have way too many predators in Idaho.
Yeah, I've heard that's getting out of control as well. And also, Dan, like, take this with a grain of salt, because I can't remember the exact legality of some of the stuff going on in California, which is just absurd. But I know that you can't even, oh man, I'm trying to think of some of the crazy stuff. But there's some crazy laws, I think, with water holes and baiting in California. So, like, basically you have almost zero chance of shooting a bear in California, if you're a bow hunter. From what I've heard.
I would tell you, if you go to the Trinities and buy yourself a blacktail tag and it opens in August sometime, pick up that extra $300 or $400 bear tag you will have an opportunity at a bear. And you don't need to set water. You just need to, I mean, they're on berries, and it's pretty thick in there, but based on, I wasn't bear hunting that year. Had I been, I know I would have stuck one. Like, there was just too many encounters with bears. Every stalk I made on a deer, I almost always bumped a bear. So they have issues big time. So does Washington State. And, you know, my state, I live in eastern Washington. I'm like 5 minutes from the Idaho border, but I'm stuck with Seattle-minded lawmaking, where it's very liberal, and people don't want to do their own killing, and they don't they don't understand us Eastern Washington people, so to speak. So my state is it's tough to live in. That's why I hunt out of state predominantly, to be honest with you.
You said, Dan, that your cabin's in Idaho. Is that right?
Yes. Yep.
So I think you did say this, but your area you can hunt there, that's just right over the counter, right, for a non-resident?
Yeah, largely the North Idaho Panhandle, which is 9 different game units. I think almost all of them are over the counter, and each unit has different dates or whatever. And some of the units you can't bait bears in because you're in grizz country, but a lot of them you can, and all of them have high bear densities. So that's why I'm like, hey, come to North Idaho, everybody. Bring your brother, bring your friend, and knock out some of these bears. You know what I mean? Like, I'm killing 2 bears a year every year. And it's just not, it's just not that. I usually kill the first one spot and stock, and then the second one I'll try to hold out for a really mature boar. So, and it's fun. It's really exciting, and there's an art to baiting. We can talk about it, but baiting is not easy. If you think you just throw some slop out and a bear's going to come in, it's just not like that at all. So we can talk advanced tactics if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, fill us in a little bit on that.
Cliff Notes version is just use your whitetail skills. I mean, I usually hunt bears out of a blind or tree stand, mainly the latter, and you have to find areas where a bear has security and they're not going to come out to the wide open and just eat during daylight hours. In fact, that's the biggest struggle with baiting bears, is that they come in at night. They're very nocturnal. But so you have to get bears hooked. You need a lot of time to kill a bear over bait, because you got to get them hooked on coming into whatever it is that you're feeding them. We do pastries and dog food, but mainly pastries. We set up in areas where the wind has prevailing winds, is fairly predictable. You can't set up in swirly areas. You have to kind of study your Google Maps and find funnels, just like you would with pinch points, just like with deer. They love old growth or thick areas, so you have to kind of set up and be mindful of the wind, almost more so than deer, because bears will almost always come in and circle the bait, try to see if any human scent has been in the area. You can't check your trail camera with your bare hands. You got to wear gloves. There's a lot of little secrets like that. We usually try to find places where we can take a 4-wheeler with tons of bait and then hike it in a little ways, and we try to get that dinner bell sort of thing. We try to feed the bears at the same time of day. So we feed the bears usually. I'll drive. It's a 100-mile drive one way. I'll go Wednesday and Friday, so I'm driving 400 miles a week. It's an investment in time and gas and fuel, but it's very rewarding. And when the 4-wheeler, they hear the 4-wheeler, and then all of a sudden they can smell the food, and then they hear the 4-wheeler leave, and you check your camera, and they're on there within 5 minutes. You're kind of teaching them a behavior of, hey, the coast is clear. So then, like, I'll go in with my dad, bait. He'll go up the tree. I'll jump in the 4-wheeler, hike back, drive out to hear the 4-wheeler leave, and literally within minutes, he's in the stand and bears are coming in. And it takes several weeks to kind of build that up. Does that make sense? But
yeah,
they're smart animals, but you can fool them. It just takes some time. I get really excited about hunting bears in the rut, which is for our area, late May, early June. You know, you're setting up on areas where there's a lot of sows. And that's another benefit of hunting over bait, is you don't, you can see your target, make sure it doesn't have, it's not a mom. and that's really important. But during that first week or two of the bear rut, you'll have a lot of boars just cruising like bull, elk, and just fighting for dominance, and they're marking their territory, and that's when you can get a chance at a big bear. And they let their guard down. They're looking for ladies, and so that's when I usually hunt over bait. And so it's an art. I'm still learning a lot, but it's exciting.
Man, it sounds exciting. I'm like ready to go bear hunt. It's like I'm fascinated now.
Yeah, and there's so much to know about these animals, man. It's really cool. I killed one bear one year with my wife. She videoed it. I knew an area where a lot of bears den up, and there's a stretch of green grass that's gated. It's an old logging road, and it's like, I call it the magic road. And I've killed probably 3 or 4 bears off this one little stretch, like this little quarter-mile strip of green grass. You get the wind right, you go get there early spring, and I'm telling you, it's like bears just came out of the den and they're eating grass. They're kind of dazed and confused, and it's a fun, exciting hunt. There's just so many ways. I've never killed a bear with dogs. I'm sure that's cool. I just haven't done that. I still get a really big kick out of sneaking up and shooting one 20, 30 yards off the ground. That is exciting.
No, I bet you that's a rush for sure. Have you ever had the opportunity to see, like, I don't know how they do it, if it's slightly different than deer, but which I assume, but have you ever seen 2 males basically on the tail of a hot sow and, a standoff, so to speak, who's the dominant boar?
I've seen breeding pairs together, which, that's pretty cool. You glass a clear cut and you're like, oh, there's a nice bear. And then you look over and you're like, oh my gosh, that's a sow, because this bear right behind her is huge. Bears are very, very hard to judge trophy-wise. I mean, you can be deceived. I have been deceived many a time. The littlest bear I've ever killed, I thought it was way bigger, and the biggest bear I've ever killed took 4 of us to lift into the back of the four-wheeler. I didn't think it was that big of a bear, So bears are really hard to judge. The coolest thing I've seen, and this is something that I've learned, is that boars are insanely jealous of their bloodline, so to speak, and they will kill cubs. They will kill cubs that are not theirs. I think they'll even kill cubs that are theirs, as long as that sow will come into heat. So if a sow's got cubs, she's not going to come into heat. Their instinct is to kill those cubs. They know that sow will go into heat, and which is crazy. But I've literally had early June, I had the sow and these 2 little baby beautiful cubs, and they came in day after day, and I didn't sit that stand. I just kept pulling the card, kept feeding it, and those bears cost me a lot of money. I fed them well for weeks, and then one day a monster boar was on the bait, and I was like, okay, I'm hunting here tonight. And he came in daylight hours, and so the next day I was up in that stand all day, and one of the little cubs came in by himself, which that was never on camera before, and he came in like he was scared for his life. It took him about an hour just to get to the bait. He grabbed a little bagel and just took off running. And I never saw his little brother ever again. And then he came back to the bait just before shooting light was about to be over, and he took off running, and then out walks this big boar. And I stuck him. He was a really big boar, and I killed him, but never ever, I checked that camera for weeks afterwards. That sow and that one cub is all that remained. So he definitely killed one of the cubs. So bears are brutal, man. They are just a brutal reminder of how vicious nature is. Nature has, doesn't discriminate, doesn't care. So pretty interesting.
That is pretty wild. I know that. I've always heard that about boars, that they, big bears will do that sometimes, but that's super unique that you basically had a situation, you knew about it, and actually, you basically saved a little cub's life.
Yes.
That's pretty wild. So what do you got, what do you have going on this fall? So you got bear hunting coming up here the next few weeks, and then what do you have planned for the fall?
I'm waiting for draws to come out. I know I'm going to be hunting Arizona archery elk late season. I did draw that, but still waiting to hear back from Nevada and Utah, New Mexico. We'll see how the draws roll out. My backup plan is always to hunt Idaho elk and possibly Montana elk, maybe Washington State. But if I don't draw anything really sexy, I'll just stay home and do over-the-counter hunts, which I love. That's fine. How about you?
I got a couple things going on. We're working on getting a new piece of ground in southern Indiana, basically the whitetail hunt out of. And rumor has it I may be on my first elk hunt come this fall, either in Colorado or Utah. So I'm pretty excited about that as well.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited, just the whole, I talked to so many guys, like you, Dan, from out west, and I get to hear all this stuff and just haven't got to experience that kind of hunt yet. So I'm super excited to just get in that situation and hopefully, hear and feel exactly what everybody tells me about elk hunting, so I'm super, super stoked to do that. So
elk hunting will change a man. It will change you. It
I've
really
heard.
will. It's the most powerful drug that I've encountered. I'm completely addicted. I cut my teeth on hunting elk. I killed a bull in 2001, my very first year out with a rifle. Very, very lucky in Washington State. And I had just bought a bow. So I'm like, I'm going to try elk hunting with a bow the next year. So 2002 till 2006, I went every year and did not kill a bull, but kept going. And finally in 2006, I killed my first bull. So there is a learning curve. So I encourage anyone and everyone who doesn't live out west that hears this, you've got to go elk hunt. You've got to make time for it. It's going to take you a couple of years to get that learning curve. And then you're just going to be dialed. Plus, let's be honest, how many deer does it take to equal one elk in the freezer?
Man, that's a good question, but a lot. Let's just put it that way.
You just get out west, get yourself a bull on the ground or a cow or a spike, whatever's legal. Learn how to pack that animal out and take care of the meat. Get it hung up, butcher it, or take it to a processor, and you're going to be doing good. I kill 2 elk a year in Idaho over the counter, which you can, it's legal. And we run out of elk meat by into August every year, and we live off elk. So I encourage everyone to come out west and learn to hunt elk.
Absolutely. I hear it's delicious. So, I'm excited. Obviously, hopefully the opportunity comes to get some, freezer stock.
Dude, that's awesome. Yeah, I hope you get to go hunt elk. I really do. It'll change a man. It'll change you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I know that we're cutting it close on time, but Dan, I told you I wanted you to drop some knowledge, and you did, man. I'm super pumped about what you shared with everybody about the bear hunting. I absolutely enjoyed it.
Cool. I appreciate that, man.
And let everybody know exactly where they can reach out or find you at Instagram or Twitter, wherever you're at.
Okay. Yeah, you can keep up with me on Instagram. My handle is Dan the Fitness Man. So that's where I put some content out. And then if you want to know what I do for workouts or what I do for shooting, check out my YouTube channel, which is Elk Shape, or my website, elkshape.com. And you can just see what I do. I try to keep up on all that. And you can always hit me up. I'm always looking up for questions or content to cover for people maybe coming out west and how to get in shape or what shooting drills to do or how to scout for elk. I love all that stuff. And, yeah, would love to hear from people.
Absolutely. And, Dan, make sure you stay on the line for 1 minute. But, guys and girls, as you know, as we close the show, you can find us live every Tuesday, outdoor podcast channel, podbros.com. iTunes. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and we'll see you guys on the trail. And Dan, thanks so much.
Yeah, man.